have the... I mean, your political views have probably changed over a decade.
Yeah, a little bit. I think so.
Yeah, become more libertarian. I think the pandemic made me much less libertarian.
Yeah, that's...
You just bailed us out. That was probably the right move. It was getting weird.
This isn't my first rodeo.
From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. We're talking Jim's history, his books, and how his views have changed. Check that out on Patreon.
Yeah.
And now, broadcasting from the Churn, that guy's Dr. Jim Job, and I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Jacob saving us from ourselves. Man, once I get
Where have you been the last 3 years?
I know, yeah. Once I get about 2 or 3 toes of my foot in my mouth, Jacob usually jumps in with a jingle just to go ahead and say, maybe you should stop talking so the next couple plays out.
We're going to be done.
I like this.
I would be done.
I was thinking this podcast is probably on its last leg. But
yeah.
With this new direction.
Yeah.
Jacob being able
giving
to jump
direction.
in
Yeah. With Jacob the director.
Yeah.
I think is really where we're at now. So interesting stuff in the Patreon segment. You can hear about Nick's wonderful, exciting trip to Indianapolis, which I believe is a city in Pennsylvania.
Correct.
Yep. And
Correct.
also you can hear about my literary exploits in a car accident that was definitely not my fault, and I assume no guilt whatsoever if you're listening, Geico.
Did you buy the guitar or not?
No. So I get there to the Guitar Center, and so they want the kids to have nylon guitars, so the white necks. Yeah.
Classical guitars?
I know,
I love those.
Which I don't love, but it's low action.
You don't like those?
Well, if you got to learn, if you're going to learn scales and stuff, like that's probably the better way.
Oh, I love classical guitars. I love the sound.
It's such a
of
wide
nylon.
neck that
it's tough to...
especially for a kid's hand, Even the lower action, that's great, but that wider neck's really hard. Anyway, so like they didn't have the particular model that the teacher had requested us to look for first. So they got up another one. I looked at it. I tuned it, played a little bit. It was buzzing. The action was really low, which was nice for feel. But, once you gave it a couple of hard strums, you were getting all the buzz and stuff. I was like, I don't know. So then I ended up going to like a local music shop and buying a guitar there. So I did end up getting it. Okay. Oh, it's ordered. So now I have to wait for it. But the point is the car accident was not my fault. Okay, the other person and his pregnant wife are to blame. I'm innocent, and I will have justice in this life or the next. Also, nobody was harmed. Everything's okay. Patreon.com/therapy. That's where the fun stuff is. You can hear about my souvenir that Nick got me. Like such a great friend.
Mm-hmm. The reason I didn't get you anything...
Oh, now they know.
The reason I didn't get you anything...
There's a tease, Nick.
Is because I've gotten you a lot of stuff.
You have
I've gotten you T-shirts. I've never seen you wear anything I've given you.
Well, it's because most of the stuff you get me is not public appropriate. I'm not going to wear that stuff out for other people.
You can wear it in the studio.
That's just for you, buddy. That's just for you. That's for quiet time.
All right.
We got stories or letters to read.
Yeah.
First one,
nailing it.
Journaling. This is Pod Therapy After Dark. Hi, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I had a question about journaling. I've seen you guys recommend it a few times, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure you've ever gone into any specifics about journaling how-tos. I mainly ask as quality mental health treatments are sparse to nigh on non-existent in the United Kingdom. Even more so where I am. I'm not entirely convinced by stuff like BetterHelp yet. So I'm relying on my knowledge and techniques to keep myself on the path to subsistence. One of which I had dabbled in was journaling. However, I quickly found it becoming a repository for the sort of worst thoughts I had, including a plan for ending my life, which at that point caused me to take a step back from journaling and focusing on other techniques to climb out of that pit. Is journaling the sort of thing a therapist is required for to stop that from derailing into potential harm? Was I just not doing it right? If you guys have any tips for journaling that you think would help, I know I, and presumably other listeners, would be gratefully appreciative. Love all that you do, Anonymous. Man, I hobbled through the pronunciation of every single one of those sentences. But in fairness, he's British. Or United Kingish. I don't remember what.
You know that's the same language that we speak, right?
Is it, though?
Yeah,
Is it?
I don't think you had to do a whole lot of translating for this letter.
It's obviously not the same language that Jim speaks.
Yeah. We'll have to get in touch with some of our British people and they can translate this to me. I don't know. I barely speak English, and you know that. None of this is shocking. But yeah, journaling just becoming a repository for your worst thoughts.
Yeah, that's not great.
That's
No.
not wonderful.
So we actually, as a lot of our listeners know, we are very behind on getting to some of these letters, some of these that have come in.
No, we're
so
not.
we
Shaking the confidence of the listener,
We are.
man.
we're getting through all of them,
We're doing our job.
but it's taking some time.
Well, we have a queue.
Yeah, which is awesome.
That is awesome.
That means
Keep writing in.
Our listenership is growing.
Yeah.
So keep writing in, definitely. So we actually answered another question similar to this.
Oh, yeah.
Before this one came out.
Yeah.
But to kind of reiterate some of those main points. So, because there's a little bit of a different twist to this letter than what we had originally answered. So this one specifically kind of addressing our thoughts on, do you need a therapist to do journaling, or can you just do it on your own?
Right. Or does
Is
it end
there-
up doing this?
Right.
Does it slide back into the gutter?
Right. I guess my answer to that is it doesn't necessarily, people have been doing journaling forever.
Right.
It's just, we didn't always call it journaling. Some people would call it keeping a diary. Some people would
I
call
call
it
mine a chronicle.
creative writing.
Some people call it a chronicle.
Chronicle.
And then publish it under a pseudonym.
It's the chronic. What? Cults of Narnia.
But honestly, you have to find a method that is useful to you. Now, when a therapist assigns this to somebody, there's usually some sort of direction that the therapist wants you to focus on, to kind of narrow it in on certain things that they are going to then bring up in therapy.
Right.
And to kind of process, just to kind of get your mind working in a specific direction.
Yes.
But to do it on your own, I think, is perfectly helpful. But the writer brings up a good point, which is that for them, it kind of started going to kind of a deep, dark place.
Right.
And that is something that you would need to be mindful of.
Which isn't always bad.
It's
Sometimes
not.
it's cathartic and healthy.
Yes.
And this writer, in his or her own, wisdom, realized this is not good for me. I'm going to pivot.
Yes. So I think sometimes it could be a good thing to allow yourself the freedom to go to that deep, dark place and write about that. And I think some of that could be helpful when you go back and read it later.
Yes.
Because then I think what happens is you develop some insight into how your brain works, right? So you can just allow yourself to write negativity, and then you come back a week later and you look at it and you're like, sometimes it's shocking. You're kind of like, oh, that's
where I was at.
This event happened, and that's how I wrote about it.
Right.
That's how I interpret it.
Or look how I catastrophized that day and believed all was lost. And now I look back and go, my goodness, that was not that big of a deal.
So it could be insightful.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing if you allow yourself to do it. However, if it becomes unhealthy and you feel like it's not helping you as far as your mental health, my idea is to always try to focus on something optimistic.
Right.
And allow your journaling to be your way of forcing yourself into an optimistic position.
Sure.
Writing about something positive. It could just be a couple positive things that happened that day.
Right.
Or, something like that, where it kind of forces you to change your mindset.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. Or reaching up for your higher consciousness, right? Like, what do we say in rehabs? We talk about like your enlightened self or your higher mind. Like sometimes that's what you're channeling in a journaling experience. Like, and you don't always have to. Like like for me personally, when I journal, just me, not my advice to others. Usually it is negative, right? Because usually I'm in my own head. I'm worried about something. There's some bad things happening in my life. I find that the thoughts are unproductive and I can't get rid of them. So yeah, if you read my journal, it's a lot of negative talk, and there's things that I'm worried about and things that I'm sad about and things that I'm scared about and I'm struggling with something. So yeah, it is a dumping ground for me. Is it cathartic or therapeutic to process it in writing? Yes, oftentimes it is. And that's essentially why, as therapists, we're usually trying to get people to start doing it. Now, again, there's a couple of different strategies. Like if you're wondering, like, what are we up to as therapists when we bring up journaling? First off, I don't always do that. Oh, that was my ringtone. Do you know what that was? Or that's my notification tone.
No. Jacob, do you care?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay. Well, you know
Moving
what?
on.
If you're a patron and you heard that sound, go on into the comments of this episode and let us know what video game that is from. Huge tip. That's a big tip. So whenever I ask people to journal,
Oh, now I know what it's from.
yeah, do you?
Yeah, it's Zelda.
Damn it! No.
All right, done.
Ah, shit. All right.
I
There
love
goes-
ruining his little games.
Yeah.
Me too.
Damn it. All right, so whenever I want people to journal, there's usually two things that I'm trying to do. A, I'm trying to get them to become more conscious of their own thoughts. Because a lot of times we just think our thoughts, but we don't notice our thoughts, right? So it comes spilling through our brain, and it's just the stream of consciousness, and we're literally surfing that wave. But I want to give you this over-the-shoulder perspective where you can pull away from yourself on that wave and see you on the wave, right? And see what's happening, what's behind you, what's in front of you, what's around you, what you were thinking at the time. Even if that's just a day later or an hour later. If you can capture the conscious thought when it's happening, it will facilitate examination later on, which as a therapist, we're going to fundamentally do. So a lot of times when I'm asking people to, I'm not usually saying I want you to sit down and long form journal. I usually tell them I want you to track your emotions and track your thoughts. And I usually challenge people to do it with bullet points. I tell them, open up a note in your phone, and just as things happen in your life, I want you to jot these down. If they're going through anxiety, I tell them to scale their anxiety. If they're going through depression, I tell them to scale their depression, give them a 1 through 10 scale. And it's because I want to discuss it with them. And I'm going to be their living journal in a sense. Now, that's what's different, writer, about a therapist than the paper. Paper doesn't ask you any questions. Unless, by the way, you get a guided journal, which totally exists, and that can sometimes be really helpful because they're built with questions in them.
Yeah.
Or sometimes come with like a little card stack of questions that you can pull as prompts that are very introspective and cause you to write in a more clear way. But as a living journal, the therapist is trying to facilitate deeper understanding and insight by getting you to reflect on what's happened in your life and how you were thinking at the time, right? Because when I talk to you on like Friday afternoon, and I'd be like, oh, Jim, what's up, man? It's great to see you. And I'll be like, how was your week? I'm like, good. And I'm like, hey, pull out your little notepad thing and go, oh, that's right. On Tuesday, I wanted to kill myself. Okay, because you a second ago said good, right? And like, that was it. To encapsulate 6 days, that was it. And it's like, yeah, no, here's what happened, you know? Okay, cool. Now we're discussing it. And I'm trying to get you to self-examine. As a therapist, I have a purpose to that, right? I know the direction I want you to go on the map. So I'm usually asking questions, trying to get you to self-examine and notice and connect dots. And I'm like backing away from you and having you follow me, but I'm basically guiding you through a maze. A journal can't do that. And that's where sometimes I think people get stuck, is they just feel like they're dumping it and they have nothing to do with it. But I do think it's still cathartic and therapeutic and often very helpful, even if there isn't another person to discuss that with or another human to connect dots. And if that's where you're at, that's when I want you to become your own therapist. And I want you every so often, maybe monthly or whatever, go back through your journal entries and discuss it with yourself as your own therapist, which is what I talked to you about earlier, accessing your higher self. Reflect on it and notice things and say, wow, look at how scared I was that day. God, I remember how terrified I was that day about this outcome. I remember how sad I was, how sure I was. I wanted to end my life. And I was actually thinking about it, and I had to stop myself writing because it was getting too practical and was no longer helpful to me. Wow, I was going to end my life over that. I'm so glad I didn't. And that self-awareness comes into play in the future. If you ever get into a similar position, you remember, oh, that's right, this happens to me. I remember when it happened 2 years ago. It's important that I have that external perspective.
Journaling is very broad. I mean, it's a huge topic.
Yeah.
You know, in a lot of ways, it's kind of reminds me of physical exercise. And somebody's like, well, what's the best physical exercise for me? And it's, well, what is your goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Because that, you know, there's a million different ways to do it.
Climbing a salmon ladder.
Exactly.
That's important.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'll help. It's good cardio.
Yeah. Especially if you're a salmon.
Yes.
Yeah. The journaling is kind of the same thing. I like, because I've done this before with clients that I've worked with where every week they're writing something different.
Oh, yeah.
Like completely different topics. And it really has to do with what we talked about that week.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like a practical applications. You know, today we talked a lot about your ability to identify high risk decisions or high risk situations.
It's guided journaling.
Yeah. So this week, what I want you to do is I want you to keep track of high risk situations that you encounter throughout the week. You know, and so it's taking what we learned today and putting a applicable process to it.
Yeah.
You know? So sometimes that's very useful. I agree with the journaling books, the workbooks and stuff. Sometimes that's really helpful because it guides you through things. Sometimes it's just too broad to just leave open like that. Just write stuff.
You know what we should start? We should start like a journal entry of the day program where like we post on our social media or Patreon like a prompt for the day.
Or why don't we just write our own book?
Oh, I'm tired of doing that, Tingeman. I can't just keep churning these things out. I got shit to do.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
God, you're not
me.
the first guy this week trying to get me to write a book or somehow get me incorporated in it. But Ryder, we're glad that you're writing in your journal. And remember, there probably is some kind of email subscription service you could join or a website or prompts. And that sometimes can lead you to some interesting thoughts or conclusions. And by the way, I just want to point out, you did a great job whenever you noticed the journal was getting too dark and it was no longer productive. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you were just ruminating on bad ideas. And you looked around and said, yeah, this elevator's only going down. Let's go ahead and hop off on this floor. And we'll regroup. And Ryder, that was exactly the thing that you needed to do. Well done on that.
Yeah.
What about because I had a thought, and it was basically if you think you might need a therapist to get you started on this, then go get a therapist to get you started on this.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned BetterHelp and not completely being sold out. I'll be more sold on them when they sponsor the show. Until then, I have a healthy amount of skepticism. The minute they cut us a check, though, I'm all in, BetterHelp. All in. Can't wait to endorse you when the check clears and not a moment sooner.
Yep, we're very upfront about that.
Yeah, we can be bought. We will be bought. We can only be bought. But no, Ryder, anything is better than nothing. And don't forget that there's also online support groups. There's lots of meetup.com groups, I'm sure in your area as well. In America, we have NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. I'm sure you have some kind of organization out there as well. But those are also places where you can contemplate ideas out loud with other people and get some perspective from them as well. But if you are feeling suicidal, Ryder, and that's something you mentioned, nothing should stop you from getting to a therapist immediately. And remember, I'm sure you guys have some equivalent of 911 out there, but call emergency services if you ever feel like you might take your own life. You don't feel safe, you don't trust yourself. Call your emergency services. Let them talk about it with you. They will at least point you in the right direction. Some kind of resource will be made available. And I'd rather you talk to the BetterHelp folks than feel that way, period, end of story. Even before BetterHelp cuts us the check, which they should and will do soon, I'm sure. Any day now, that check will come in the mail.
Yep.
Sponsor the show, BetterHelp. Or we're going to somebody else.
I will be holding my breath.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are discussing COVID agoraphobia. Ooh, that's a mouthful. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Don, Scott Jameson, Richard Macy, Lord, Colin Stewart. If you'd like to sponsor the show, become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy. Our theme this week in honor of our therapy producers is famous Hoosiers.
Ooh. Wait a minute. Indianapolis is in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Are Hoosiers from Ohio?
You're going to do great on this one.
Yeah, this is, again, geography. All right. This late-night host is a graduate of Broad Ripple High School and Ball State University and began his broadcasting career in his hometown of Indianapolis.
I know it.
Who is it?
David Letterman.
Yeah. I just know he's from Indy.
All right.
Yeah!
If you'd like to join the therapy producers and make the show possible, go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
I'm great as long as it's not geography based. Like, you can start with a place and then ask a question that has nothing to do with a map, and I'll be pretty okay.
Name a state that borders Indiana.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I don't know why I spent any time researching any of this.
Have no idea. I'm not kidding. I have no clue.
Name a state that's not Indiana.
Can I ask questions?
No.
Well, no.
I don't think it's coastal. It's not West Coast, obviously.
Are you serious?
It's definitely...
You don't think it's on the coast? Have you never been to the Indiana coastline?
No. I've never been anywhere over there. I've been to Chicago.
You've never seen the pictures of the Indianapolis 500 overlooking the ocean?
Yeah, I feel like I have seen that.
You've never gone surfing in Indiana.
All right, so hold on then. What else is coastal? New York. It's next to New York.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's south of New York.
Yeah.
No, it's north. No, wait. Isn't it to the left? No, that's Pennsylvania. It's underneath Pennsylvania, New York.
Yeah, right on the coast there.
Yeah. Is that coastal underneath Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Then it's under that. What was
it's
the question? Name
on
the
the-
state?
on the
Pennsylvania.
west side of Pennsylvania.
I'm gonna,
on the
okay.
coast.
I'm distrusting whether it's right next to New York. So I'm gonna go with Pennsylvania because I feel like that's a safer answer because it's. I know Pennsylvania's big, so Pennsylvania is adjacent to Indiana.
Nailed it. God,
Did I get it?
He's good.
Did I get it?
He's good.
Damn, that's not too bad.
You're unstoppable today.
Was it Pennsylvania? Well, there's probably more than one state that's next to it.
No, it's just Pennsylvania.
It's inside of Pennsylvania.
It's inside.
It borders only Pennsylvania.
It's inside of Pennsylvania
Yeah.
on the coast.
Yeah. It's a nugget inside of
Yes.
the center. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
like the
on the
Earth's
coast.
molten core.
On the-
Okay.
yeah.
COVID agoraphobia. Hi, Pod Therapy guys. I've been a listener for a while now, so I thought I'd send in a question. I live in Canada, so the pandemic has been experienced a bit differently here, and vaccines only really started ramping up at the start of June. I'm getting my second shot tomorrow, which I'm very happy about.
Good for you.
But now there's a lot of talk about things going back to normal. I graduated university in spring of 2020, and while so far I've avoided getting COVID and landed a good job, I'm not going back to anything familiar. At the start of the pandemic, I had to leave everything with only a few hours' notice. Then I got to watch my graduation on YouTube and was told I was in for a difficult 10 or 20 years. So inspiring. Then I moved hundreds of kilometers away. Is that a lot?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a couple 100 feet.
Yeah, I think, oh boy, that's got to be rough. Moved hundreds of kilometers away from all my friends and family for work. I went a bit overboard on the quarantining, given I'm young and healthy. So in my new city, I've seen a grocery store and a vaccine center. I've now lived here for a year. To be fair, my anxiety reached new highs during this time, so this was the best I could do. Did you guys hear it? Oh,
Yep.
Haven't turned that off, huh?
Oh.
Yeah.
Jacob texted me a picture. I'll have to go look at that in a second.
Weird.
To be fair, my anxiety reached new highs during this time, so this was the best I could do. I work from home, so I've never met my coworkers, and we've all been working nonstop during both our regular jobs and the extra we've taken on because of the pandemic. I work in finance, so I get to see how so many people have been financially ruined, and almost nothing we do is enough to help. It is very draining. My workplace is supportive, but there is a lot of turnover and burnout, so I'm a senior employee, despite working here for less than a year. Last week, I started writing emails in my sleep, so I think the stress is getting to me. I really need to stop that before I F up my job. Now things finally seem to be getting better, and restrictions are lifting, but after doing this 3 times, I am constantly bracing for the next wave and another lockdown. I've been alone in my apartment for over a year. I don't know anyone or anything in the area. Up until 3 weeks ago, it was illegal to even sit at a picnic table in a park because of the lockdowns. The messages of don't go near people has really sunk in, even though things are much safer now. At this point, I panic when people get too close to me in the store, and I have nightmares of buffet restaurants and people not wearing masks. I did start seeing a therapist a few months ago. I haven't found it very helpful because she keeps looking for things from my childhood to tie stuff to, but also gets upset at a lot of the things from my childhood, and then we just avoid them. Now we mostly talk about the weather. I guess my question is, how do I go back to normal when I'm not going back to anything? How do I gracefully get away from this therapist? What shoes do I wear in a business casual environment when I finally go to the office I work in? Any advice is appreciated. Thanks. We should also point out this person wrote that letter right before the Delta variant exploded across the continent.
So it's gotten better.
Yeah, it's only gone up, writer. Man, you predicted that. That's a tough one, man. How do we go back to normal? Assuming that a normal is going to happen at some point. You know, the Delta variant washes away.
There's never a go back to normal.
What do you think?
In anything.
Yeah.
In life, there's never a go back to normal.
Right.
Normal is like we are normal. This is normal.
This is the new
normal right
normal.
now.
Yeah.
Like that'll change too.
Yeah,
But,
that's probably true.
We're not going to go back to how life was 2 years ago at all.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that I've realized.
But just like every year there is a new variant of the flu, or
Right.
like the flu can get bad some years,
Yeah.
and then like whatever precautions are taken that year, that becomes the normal thing now.
Yeah, I think that you're there. So this last
Hell, when I was younger, I didn't have to take my shoes off to fly.
Oh, wow.
I mean, just
Now you do.
Get ready.
Oh, there it is.
Hey, get off my lawn! Don't make me get the hose.
9/11 really ruined everything. No, but I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a really good question of what is a reasonable expectation of normal. And that's, to Jacob's point and echoing what the writer said, that's something that happened to me this past week. So as we record this in the past week, kids went back to school, which, as both of you guys could expect, I had an anxiety attack. Like, that was very hard for me.
What?
Yeah, super difficult.
Jim?
Yeah, very tough day to send the kids there. We have a mask mandate in our state, so I put my kids in the best masks I could find, got them ready, sent them, and then had an
Wrap the
anxiety
best
attack.
T-shirts you can find around their faces.
That's right. I put T-shirts around them just like back in the old days. So like that was really hard because I wanted them to just not go back to school, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to keep them online. It's been like this for 2 years. I'm just going to wait for this thing to end, and that's a very hard thing, right? Because I had to sit down and ask myself, you know, Jim, what if this is just not gonna end? What if there's going to be times when we don't need to wear masks? And then, like a weather report, we're going to see the latest numbers of our communities, and we're going to have procedures for what to do when the numbers are at certain levels. And what if every so often there's a new booster shot that they're releasing, and we're getting updated, and we're putting on new masks? And what if that's going to be it? Like, at some point, we're going to have to follow the advice of our leadership while also existing. And there's a way to exist responsibly that's not being silly and devil may care about it. But perhaps this is a version of the new normal. Granted, a lockdown is inherently not normal, and I think that's what the writer's talking about, a lockdown in contrast to any kind of opening, because Canada was locked down a lot longer than we were. You know, we had the vaccines quicker, and, you know, we had a lot more, you know, help in that regard. So what do you think about that?
I don't know. I agree with Jacob in the sense that I always kind of look at life as being like navigating a river, in the sense that your normal is always moving. Like there's a current.
Yeah.
And your best bet is to learn.
Son of a bitch! Indiana's next to Illinois? I just got his text.
Yeah, which is a map of
Hey!
the
With
United
Indiana
States.
circled.
So that's why you kept emphasizing the coastal thing, is because it's not. Fuck
I
you.
was emphasizing the coastal thing because you're a moron.
It's next to a Great Lake. It's
Which
underneath one.
Yeah, and I made a joke about surfing too. I don't know if
I'm
you
sure
caught
they
that.
did. You can surf the Great Lakes.
You cannot surf the Great Lakes.
You can surf the Great Lakes. They are inland seas. You can surf them. They essentially behave like a damn
All right,
sea.
let's get back to the listener.
What was the question?
Essentially, your best bet is to learn to navigate the current. You know, so normal is always going to be changing. But instead of trying to fight the current and try to return to a point that you were previously at, you just kind of learn to live within that stream,
Right.
And try to navigate within that. And normal is always going to be changing. But that doesn't discredit any of the concerns that the writer writes in about.
No.
I mean, all of that, I mean, it makes sense. Like, it changed the way that we perceive things. I think about this all the time when I'm standing in a line, you know? I'm a lot more conscious of giving the person in front of me a lot more room.
Yeah.
It was always a pet peeve of mine when there was a line formed someplace and somebody is really far back.
Yeah.
And I always used to be frustrated with that. Like, dude, are you in line or not?
Right.
If you're in line, get in line.
Right.
You know, why the
Now
hell are you
it's
standing
like-
way back there? Now, my perspective has completely changed.
Right.
And I'm just kind of like, okay, we all know there's a line.
Yeah.
We don't have to be right on somebody's heels.
Right.
We can give people some space.
Well, like what Jacob said about, I didn't used to have to take off my shoes to get on an airplane.
Yeah.
Or used to go to the gate and greet grandma when she got off the plane.
Used to be able to smoke on my
Yeah.
plane ride.
Right. And like the definition of normal is always changing and
Yeah.
probably will define maybe a period of time for us.
Yeah.
You know, it might be 5-6 years, you know, before they finally announce, by the way, the variants seem to have gone into being innocuous.
But, you know, things like mask wearing in this
Yeah.
country. That's never been a real
Right.
main staple in this country.
not in America or Canada, you know,
Yeah.
where the writer's from.
And like that's just going to be around now.
But in China, like I think I've told the story on here, but in 2018, I went to the Grand Canyon in February, and it was the Chinese New Year, and so there was just a ton of Chinese tourists that were over there by
Tourists.
Yeah, that's why I said tourists, And they were
It's a
over
car
there.
that Ford used to make.
Yeah, it was the Chinese Taurus. So it was the year of the Taurus. And so they were, Greek words like Taurus. So yeah, the Chinese tourists were there. And they were all wearing masks. And this was in 18. And I was like, wow, that's so strange. And like, obviously then the pandemic happens and it comes out of China. And it, like, the first thing that I realized is like, oh wow, they've dealt with this a bunch. Like there's a billion people over there. There's another billion in India. Like, they have to be thoughtful of this, and they've been dealing with respiratory illnesses being passed around. So,
And I believe
that's their normal.
I could be wrong about this, but I believe that that normal started for them during the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe.
which did not start in Spain.
Yes.
I believe it started in Kansas. I believe the first reported cases of it were in Kansas.
That feels right. Kansas generally ought to be blamed for more things.
Yeah.
And I'm totally on board. Hey, geography quiz, Nick. Where's Kansas?
Yeah, right next to Iowa.
Oh, fuck. Is it? All
yeah,
right.
yeah, it's in its neighborhood.
Well,
yeah.
That
it's
was a
actually-
softball, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Iowa.
Shit.
It's Iowa, Nebraska, and then
Ah,
Kansas
shut
right
up.
below
Nobody-
that.
Nobody cares.
And then Oklahoma is below that, and then you got Missouri to the east.
yeah.
Jim's having a tough day, so I'm going to give him one here.
Indiana was
people
coastal.
do surf on the Great Lakes.
Yes! Yes!
I don't think it's the same as ocean.
I know.
Dumb
Ocean
son of a
surfing.
bitch.
Yeah. Because I know people surf on Lake Tahoe too.
I think it's better than that.
Yeah. It's an inland sea.
It's
They're
not an inland
huge.
sea. Quit saying that.
It's an inland sea.
It's not.
It's a
We
lake.
call them
It's a
Great
lake.
Lakes, but that's what it is.
Because they're lakes.
It's bigger than the Black Sea.
The Black Sea and the Great Lakes have one major difference, and that is
They're spelled differently.
okay. They have two major differences.
The Black Sea is black.
It's
don't
a
see
sea.
No, that's a thing that the
It has
Europeans
salt.
say.
Salt.
The Black Sea does?
Yeah,
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
That's the Dead Sea.
I'll look it up. But the Dead Sea has a lot of
Sea.
salt.
The Dead Sea does. The Black Sea is just a sea. But these are inland seas, which is, anyway, what the hell was the question again? Oh, normals. All right, listen. Here's what I got for you, Ryder. So first off, I relate to, because I remember when the pandemic was slowing down here in Vegas, this would be pre-Delta variant, and people were stopping wearing masks. There weren't rules anymore saying it. If you were vaccinated, you didn't have to wear a mask. Turns out that was horrible advice, and the Delta variant took advantage of that shit real fast. But, like, I remember feeling very weird, like you talk about in your letter, that the restrictions were lifting. And I remember looking around being like, ugh, like, am I ready for this? Like, this feels odd. I'm not used to it. Like you mentioned in the letter, you took very seriously the advice of, like, stay home, don't talk to anybody, don't get near anybody.
Yeah.
And I remember being very averse to that. And it was like, but I guess I would argue, if and when the restrictions lift in your place, in our place, if and when the numbers go down, if and when we start to have less procedures for these things, I do believe that we can all return to those old behavioral trends of interaction. And I think it will just take time, just like it took us time to, like, get used to the masking. We all resisted this shit in the beginning. It was like, oh, this is dumb. And then, like, we all got used to it. And it was like, yeah, no, just one person on the elevator at a time. It's not that big fucking deal.
Right.
Like, so
Take the
I think we
stairs.
just adapt. Yeah, take the
Yeah.
stairs. Yeah. Look, I'm going to eat dinner on the patio. So
Black
what?
Sea has salt.
So they all have salt. The ocean has salt.
Yeah,
Which is a sea.
the Great Lakes don't.
It's the ocean. There's 7 seas, I
Oh my
guess.
God.
Look, the point is people surf on the Great Lakes. All right?
Yeah. Okay.
So-
Cool.
Surfing lakes.
Either way,
I'm right.
I wouldn't say
Accept your
that's
apology.
coastal.
All right. Let's talk about the important question in the
Definitely
letter.
not coastal.
It's on coast. There's a coastline of Indiana.
No.
There's a coastline in Indiana.
No.
People of it. Call Ben. Call Ben right now.
Oh, you know what?
What time is it
You know
in
what?
Benstown?
Is
You know what?
Boulder City coastal?
Yeah, Lake Mead. It's coastal.
That's a lake,
Yep.
not an inland sea.
Nevada's coastal.
The Great Lakes are lakes.
The people of the Great Lakes
Oh,
treat it like
how
a beach.
coastal is Minnesota? Land of 10,000 lakes. It's all coastline.
Just because the word lake is applied to both bodies of water does not truly mean it's the best descriptor of that size of a body of water.
Seas are generally larger than lakes and contain salt water.
No shit. The Great
The
Lakes
Great Lakes are
huge.
not salt.
Well, all right, fine. Maybe the word sea is wrong, but it's a big
No,
ass
the
body
word
of
sea
water.
is definitely wrong.
All right, whatever. Call Ben and ask him, hey, man,
Yelling the words inland sea.
is there an
like they
Indiana
mean
coastline?
something.
And he'll be like, yeah, of course there's a coastline, you idiot from Iowa. That's probably what he'll say.
I'll put money on that.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, so will I. As long as you call him on speakerphone in front of me
Is
Alright.
it coastal?
and let me ask.
The question, is it coastal?
Of course, he'll probably hear this
no,
episode.
I'll ask.
No,
We'll do it
How
tonight.
late is it? Can we call him?
no,
Damn it.
no.
We're
You're
doing it
lucky,
tonight.
Ben.
No.
We'll get a hold of you. We'll send you a letter. All right, so the real question the writer needs answered here is, what kind of shoes to wear in a business casual environment?
I like double monk straps.
Okay.
Because you can wear them with a suit, so
Yeah.
you can dress them all the way up. You can dress them casual.
Remind the
they go
listener
great
what
with
those are. I
jeans.
mean, I know what you're talking about, but Philistines like Jacob might not know what a double mug strap is.
monk,
So. Yeah, that's what I said.
monk,
It's just a
Double monk
pronunciation
strap.
thing. In the West Coast, we say mug strap.
monk straps.
Yeah, monk
No
straps.
laces. It's
No
got
laces.
kind of the strap that
The
goes
strap,
over
yeah,
the
that goes
top.
over the top. Yeah,
And then there's two
the two.
buckles.
Yeah.
So that's the double
Yeah,
monk
we call
strap.
them
There's
latches.
also a
That's fine.
single monk strap
There's also
that
the
you
single.
can do as
Yeah.
well.
The double is fancier, I think. Yeah.
I have a couple of double monk strap pairs of shoes.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're more formal than you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they could be dressed down with jeans. I've worn them with jeans.
Yeah, I
some-
think
a pair of dark-
I think you look pretentious wearing them with jeans.
Yeah, you
I
absolutely
didn't
look
say
pretentious.
you didn't. I didn't say you wouldn't look pretentious.
Yeah. Well, double is
That's
excessive.
fair. That's
Okay.
fair.
I-
You did not say that.
I go
You didn't
for
make that claim.
pretentious.
You know, single monk strap. I think that's the answer here. Double, too much. Too much. For business casual, that's too much.
I think for business casual, a nice lace-up two-tone shoe.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so like your standard Converse All-Stars?
I mean,
You know what
sure.
I'm talking about? Yeah.
Or you could do like a nice lace-up shoe that is a nice leather. That
Oh,
has
there you
two different
go.
shades of leather on it.
I got a
Okay.
pair of leather sneakers.
Okay.
That are really nice.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You
Brown
can do
leather
something like that, like a
sneakers.
nice
Yeah.
pair of sneakers.
Yep, with it's got a white sole on the
What do you think
bottom.
about
so it looks
loafers,
really
penny
good.
loafers?
Not much.
Yeah, not a good call.
I don't think about them often at all.
I think a nice knee-high
Some guys
boot.
can pull those off.
Yeah, you can.
That
do
is
'em.
true.
You can get 'em.
Some guys can pull those off.
Get you a
pretty well.
nice knee-high boot. Okay, laces all the way up the shin. That's what you want.
Maybe a moccasin.
Nice and tight. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe a nice
Moccasins.
knee-high moccasin.
Those are not cowboy boots. Also, you can't go wrong with cowboy.
I think
boots.
what you're hearing, listeners, that we don't know,
Oh, okay. Well, that's your
because we've thrown out just about every pair of shoe there is.
point. Is there's good surfing in Indiana?
I think rollerblades.
Ooh, you know what? I retract all my
You wanna-
answers. That was the one.
If you want to
Yeah,
talk about efficiency
yeah,
in the
yeah,
office,
yeah.
get around
That's
faster.
working smart.
Yeah.
That's
I'm just-
working smart.
I'm just trying to think if there's anything that Jim would look more ridiculous in than a pair of cowboy boots. And nothing is coming to mind.
Send them in, folks. Size 11 and a half.
That's
Send
what
me
I
some
should have
cowboy
got.
boots.
That's
I'll
what I
put
should
them
have
on.
brought you
Because
back.
I've got a few pair of cowboy
Indiana
boots.
cowboy
Indiana
boots.
cowboy boots.
I can rock some cowboy
I
boots.
don't know.
Hell yeah, I can rock some
I
cowboy
guarantee.
boots.
I
With
guarantee.
these cargo shorts I'm wearing right now,
I know. I
I'd
was just
crush
gonna say.
cowboy boots.
I was just gonna say. I guarantee if we ever got you
My
cowboy
polo
boots,
shirt and
you
cargo
would wear
shorts.
them with shorts.
Oh, fuck yeah, I would. I don't even own anything other than cargo shorts and polos. Give me boots. I will wear them. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to answer a letter from a woman who's attracted to her female friend. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This episode is brought to you by Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben
Nate.
Don, Scott Jameson, Richard Macy, and Lord Colin Stewart.
Colin.
Would you like to sponsor the show? Become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy. Continuing on with our theme of famous Hoosiers.
Bring it on.
This American writer from Indianapolis blended satire, black comedy, and science fiction into some of his well-known works. His unique writing style is known for employing long sentences and little punctuation. You're not getting multiple choice because you were both assholes on the last one. So you
I
just
don't
gotta
think
guess.
I should be lumped in with the asshole over here. I just agreed with the answer.
If you'd like to join the therapy producers that make the show possible, go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's
damn it.
patreon.com/therapy.
All right, read me the clues again.
Oh, Lord.
An American
Author.
writer
Yep.
from Indianapolis
Yep.
blended satire, black comedy, and science fiction into some of his well-known works. His unique writing style is known for employing long sentences and little punctuation.
Ah, jeez.
Novels? Do we?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I know,
Go ahead.
but I can't remember the person's name, but I
Well,
know
that's not going to help you.
it's
here.
not a good
Yeah.
not a good start. But I definitely have a title
All right,
of
give
a
us the
book
book.
that they've written,
Give us the
and
book.
I believe that that's the author
Okay.
that you want.
All right,
Go ahead.
Go for it.
The book is called Slaughterhouse-Five,
Oh.
Yes.
and I forget the writer's name.
Oh.
Oh God, it's gonna drive me crazy now.
All right, give us the choices.
Oh
okay.
yeah,
I think
well,
Jim's.
that-
I think
I'll
Jim's
keep
earned
my mouth
multiple-
shut
multiple
because
choice
once
now.
I hear it, I'll know.
You'll absolutely know.
Yeah,
what
so
to
I'll
hear.
keep my mouth shut. Give Jacob the choices.
Truman Capote, Harper Lee, Joseph Heller, Kurt Vonnegut.
Vonnegut.
Okay, so not only is it Vonnegut, can I tell you the books the other people wrote?
Yes.
All right. Heller wrote Catch-22.
Yep.
Yes.
Harper wrote Catcher in the Rye or Death of a Salesman.
No and no.
Fuck. Oh, shit.
Harper
Something-
wrote her second book just a few years before she died.
Hamlet 2.
That's it.
Yep, nailed it. It was, damn it.
It had nothing to do with pigeons.
The Watchmen.
No.
All
Or Roadrunners.
right, what was
Or
it?
Pigeons.
To Kill a
or-
Mockingbird.
Shut, God damn it. They're all the same books. I don't know.
False.
Who's the first person
Also
again?
false.
Truman Capote.
Capote wrote the Bible.
That's it.
Yeah, nailed it. What did Capote write?
It's a courtroom murder mystery.
Yeah.
It's True something, I think.
True Lies.
No, that's not it.
A Few Good Men.
Isn't True in the title?
Jurassic Park
Yeah.
is Jurassic Park. Final answer.
I read it years ago. It was a great book.
Capote.
Shit.
It was Dad Weiss, 50
Hold on.
Fatherly Life Lessons. Also, my favorite author from Indiana is John Green. You're a good guy, John.
In Cold Blood.
In Cold Blood. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yep.
Like me some John Green. So
was
Kurt
wrong about
Vonnegut. Damn
Kurt
it.
Vonnegut.
I was
Yeah.
close. Well, I was technically. Well, I guess I didn't get it.
As soon as I had the choices
Then-
given to me, I
then
knew,
it was
I knew
it.
exactly who it
That
was.
was
Yeah.
a slam dunk. All right, here's our next letter from a
I
woman.
also would have gotten it if you had given the
Oh
four,
yeah, you
the
would
four
have
options.
You would have gotten it immediately. Yeah.
Even if I hadn't known it was Vonnegut's writing style, I knew the other three. And I
Oh,
knew they
you knew
wered
the
it.
other books.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
eliminated them.
I could have
That's
done
probably
process
true.
of elimination.
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Greetings, Pod Therapy Masters. I am married for over 20 years, and my husband and I have a relatively healthy relationship. There could be more intimacy, and our sex life has faded over the years to much less frequency. However, there is a lot of time spent together and holding in closeness in bed. I generally feel cared about and seen by him. I have several close female friends, and I have found myself over the last couple of years becoming more and more attracted physically to one of them. This is not completely new for me, as I played field hockey in high school and found myself being really anxious when it came time to change in the locker room. I remember wishing I could just avoid the locker room situation because I found myself thinking a lot about some of my teammates when I got home after seeing them shower. I never acted on any of those feelings. I forgot about all of those high school locker room attractions until recently. I don't want to cause harm to my marriage or to my friend's marriage, but I'm just struggling to understand what this means. There's a sense of missing out and sadness when I think about her and never knowing her in a different way. I also love my husband and feel close to him. It's just a feeling of missing out on an experience that I know I can't have. This feels disappointing to me, though not devastating. Plus, I don't even know if she's attracted to me, but I do obsess about that. But know that asking would lead down a risky pathway. Any advice, Rebecca? It's a good one. It's a really good question.
Yeah.
I've had several cases over the years that have been very similar to that exact situation.
Okay.
Always interesting. Always interesting. I've had situations where the Rebecca in the situation went to her husband and explained, "Hey, I want to let you know this. I'm not leaving you. I'm happy, but I feel like I need to be honest with you. I feel attracted to my friend so and so, and I just want to get your opinion on that." And then I've had the case where the Rebecca in the situation has gone to the friend so and so and said, "Hey, these are my feelings. I don't expect you to act on them. But I felt like it'd be honest to tell you that." And, always an interesting outcome whenever I've seen that play out. I think
I feel like you definitely don't need to do that second one.
Yeah. They did that without consulting me. And
good.
I caught them later on because I did not advise that.
Because I was about to have questions for you.
Yeah, I didn't advise that at
I was
all.
like, why would you tell them to do that?
It did not go well for that particular case. It wasn't terrible, but it did harm the friendship. And the friend was
Right.
like, "Hey, you matter to me. I care super duper about you. I don't have any attraction, on that level. I too am married. I'm good." And then slowly there was sort of a stagnation in the friendship, right? Because now the other
Yeah.
person felt
Right.
pressure and it did harm the friendship. So yeah, that's a very tricky thing.
I have had friends come to me and male and female and explain to me that they are attracted to me. If it doesn't
So
go
you got
together-
my email.
I did, yes.
Okay, yeah.
If it doesn't go the other, if it does not get reciprocated,
Yeah. That can be
that's awkward.
as it of course it would be, right?
Yeah.
Of course it would be. So
Like in
that's just
any
the
situation.
necessary
Yeah.
tension of the situation. And the writer talks about, I feel like I'm missing out. Not
And if you-
devastated
and if you
by
have
it.
no intention to act on it anyway.
Right.
If you truly don't have an intention to act on it. Now,
Right.
if you're saying that because that's the right thing to say because of your spouse or whatever,
Sure, yeah.
that's one thing. But if you truly have no intention of acting on it,
Yeah.
boy, do I not see a reason to
Yeah.
confess your love.
No, I don't think the writer's necessarily planning on it. The writer just seems to be
No,
reflecting.
the writer didn't say they were going to
Yeah,
do that.
the
We're talking
writer
about
seems
your
to
old
be
patient.
reflecting on it. Yeah. I didn't think that was a great path forward, and we ultimately worked around it, and everything came out well. But yep, we just had to do some friendship reconstruction because that was difficult. But what do you think about all this one, Nick?
Well, I guess the thing that that I'm thinking about is the idea of the fear of missing out, and just kind of wondering like how intense this fear is.
Yeah.
Is this situation something that's like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool to see what would happen from that,
Sure.
but not that big of a deal. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's kind of a 2.
Right.
That's different than like the scale of it being at like an 8 or something
Sure.
like that, where it's like, by not pursuing it, is there going to be like resentment or something that develops later on where you feel like, I really like it just continues to grow. I wish I would have
Right.
done something about it, you know?
And the writer didn't say this, but I know if I had written those words, if I had written that letter,
Yeah.
there's a section in there where they say that they've thought about this for a few years.
Yeah.
The way that translates in my mind, and this is not necessarily the writer at all, but this is how it would be if I had written these words. That would be at least some form of obsession
Okay.
in my mind. Me saying
Fixation.
that fixation's a better word.
Yeah.
Me saying that I've thought about this for years means that
Yeah.
for at least some amount of time I have been really kind of harping on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a crush for sure. It's a
Yeah.
crush, and then it becomes this question of like this fear of, and I don't know that I want to use the phrase FOMO for this, but the person saying, "Listen, I feel a sense of sadness."
At your age, you should never use the term FOMO.
Oh, I'm a young man. What are you guys talking about? I'm not in my 40s like you. Okay, I'm in my brisk and frisky 30s. I don't even know. I can use the cool kid words, and I use
Like
TikTok.
brisk and frisky.
Yeah. That's what we kids say. You elders wouldn't understand. Us Gen Zers get it.
Right.
Yeah. Say less. Bet. What were we talking about? Oh, anyway. So I don't know that I would agree with, or I wouldn't necessarily call it like a fear of missing out. It sounds like what the writer's talking about here is, listen, whenever I was young, I was attracted to women. Here I am in this situation. I find myself physically attracted to a friend. There's a part of me that feels like, gosh, I'll never get to experience that, and even though I'm happy, even though I'm good in my relationship, sure, I'm making a choice, right? I'm sticking with what I have, and now I have to deal with this tension. So you ask us for advice.
Can I just throw in a real quick sentence here?
Please
that
do.
She says, there is a sense of missing out and sadness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is there. But the writer also says, I'm not devastated, just kind of puts us in perspective there. The end of the letter says, I don't even know if she's attracted to me, but I do obsess about that. There's Jacob's point. But know that asking would lead down a risky pathway. Any advice? So my first advice is, you're right. I agree with your conclusion, writer, that it's too risky to go to the friend and ask them about that. And I get it. Like some people would see a love story here, like this unrequited romance, and be like, no, you got to ask, you got to find out. I don't know that you do. Like, I don't know that you need to put that pressure on a friend. The nature of your relationship is friendship. It's what you both signed up for. I think it's okay to tell them, like, I think you're just such a good-looking person. I just think you're really attractive. I hope, give him compliments. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I compliment Nick all the time, but that's different than telling him, I've only been doing this podcast for 3 years because I'm really hoping something happens,
Now I'm starting to see why your old patient did what they did.
No. What they did is totally independent of my advice. And that's all I'm saying. Nick, I'm just going to scoot a little bit closer to you while you answer this next question. Go ahead. What do you think that the writer should do? And look me in the eyes when you say it.
I don't know what they should do. This is a tough one because we don't really
Yeah.
know kind of where they're at. I mean,
Do you think they should tell the
here's
friend?
the thing. No, to me, it's not an issue of telling the friend.
Okay.
I think the first thing would be talking to the husband.
Do you think the husband needs to know? That seems big.
If
No,
if there is any intention of doing anything about this,
Right.
Right. the
other than it
husband.
just being a fantasy, if it's going to remain a fantasy,
Fine. And you accept the reality.
that's just
of
in
it.
your that's your headspace.
Right.
You don't need to speak to your spouse,
Which
about
is an
that.
option.
Right.
Option
Certainly,
A is
certainly.
do nothing, keep the friendship. You don't have to disclose this to anybody. And yes, you acknowledge to yourself and to your journal that you have these fantasies, you have these thoughts, but that you have good reasons for why you're not going to pursue them.
But if that's not going to be the option, what
Okay.
do you think?
Option B.
I'm
Nick
sorry.
says
I was rereading this. I was
Nick's option is go tell your husband.
No, I didn't say that. You didn't let me finish what I
Oh,
was going to
sorry.
say.
Go on.
The point that I was making is, to me, it's not. We're not at that level yet where we even need to bring the other woman into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, because the
Nick is
first
saying
thing,
husband first. If
husband first.
that would be
if-
before talking to the
If
other
you
woman.
think you wanted to pursue this, or if you just couldn't even wrestle with these feelings enough, and you just
Right.
needed to explain them to somebody,
Sure.
you would talk to the husband. I don't think you would go directly to the friend. Yet.
Right, right.
Okay, because I think ultimately what you kind of have to weigh is you have to weigh this idea of, if I don't do anything and I feel like I'm having these, like she says, the sense of missing out or sadness.
Right.
Mhm.
If you don't pursue this, then I think you need to accept that you may have that, but don't beat yourself up over that.
Right.
Don't, because you're making a choice and you're saying, I value my relationship with my husband, and you just kind of focus on that. And
Sure.
it's one of those things where
There are lots of things in life that you're not going to experience.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
all have those things where we miss out on something.
Right.
And I think some people
Jim
will
has never gone to
focus-
Indianapolis.
Right.
Never surfed the mighty waves of Indianapolis.
Some people will focus a lot on what they've missed out, and other people will acknowledge they missed out, but will
Right.
focus on, but I missed out because this other thing.
Right.
And this is important to me.
Yeah.
So even though I missed out, did I really miss out overall in the long run?
Sure.
Not necessarily. So I guess that's the thing that I would want to focus on is, okay, if I do miss out, yes, I missed out, but I have a great relationship with my husband. I value that relationship.
And a good friendship.
Yeah, and a good friendship with his friend. So I'm not pursuing that so that I can maintain this other really awesome thing.
Right.
So to me, it's all about how you choose to frame this with whatever choice you make. If you think like you can't resolve this, or it becomes an obsession and you have to do something about it, then I think it's a whole different discussion. And I think it's something that maybe you would bring up with your spouse.
And I think part of this has to be because everyone has people that they are attracted to that they will never have any kind of romantic relationship with.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
if you don't answer my email.
Correct. Yeah,
Leave
case in
me on
point.
red.
Uh,
I get a notification that you saw it, so
yeah. Oh no, I saw it.
okay, it's fine.
Yeah, no, I saw it.
Get a red receipt. So
But part of this, it seems to me like it is the writer also coming to grips a little bit with their sexuality.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
good
so I mean
point.
that's going to be part of this as well for you
Yeah.
is just dealing with that. And dealing
Yes.
with the kind of mental flip-flop that you're going through right now.
Yes.
And just coming to this realization about yourself or whatever you want to refer to this as.
Right.
That's going to be a big part of it.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. And I think to me, the key writer is, what does it look like for you to allow yourself the self-exploration and self-discussion about these matters? And I also want to applaud your wisdom here. I think that we could have heard this exact same letter and had a whole bunch of different ideas from the writer. We could have been hearing the writer saying, I'm going to tell my husband tomorrow, and I'm going to go tell my friend how I feel. And I see a lot of restraint on your part, which I don't think is rooted in like non-self-acceptance or anything, that looks unhealthy to me.
Mhm.
I think it's rooted in 20 years of investment and relationship. That's not a bad one. And a friendship. That's a very rewarding friendship. And you're noticing these things inside of yourself and saying, well, I'm not going to let my feelings disrupt my relationships, but I'm writing in so that I can contemplate them. And so, Rebecca, I think that that's the number one thing I would want you to do if I were your therapist. And as I mentioned, I've had cases like this. What I've tried to do for the patient is I've tried to facilitate conversation. And my desire in that is to elicit insight. So I'll say, Rebecca, tell me about your friend. Tell me about what about them stands out to you? What about them are you attracted to? When's the first time that you remember really connecting those dots? When else in your life have you found yourself attracted to perhaps other women you've known or celebrities? And is this a part of yourself that you've ever felt like you can't explore? And then I would be unpacking feelings like that, asking you questions like, do you have any opinions about, same-sex attraction? Does it bother you? Is that something that scares you? And really, as a therapist, I'm just trying to give you the space and the safety to contemplate these things out loud, to self-examine. It's not my business what you do with those feelings. I mean, I'm here to help you and guide you, to make wise choices that reflect your own values and are congruent for yourself. But at the same time, I would encourage self-exploration on the topic. That's the key thing. Self-acceptance, self-exploration, and then valuing both the relationship you have with your husband and with your friend, realizing that a lot of married people have crushes on other people. You go to work and you have a crush on a coworker, regardless of gender, right? You could have a crush on anybody. And not acting on that is, in a sense, missing out. Sure, you could frame it that way. Or you could call it prudence, depending on the situations that person is upholding in their lives by not acting. So that's part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Great question. Really unique.
Yeah. I'd be interested in a follow-up if you decide to have that discussion or not. Why or why not? That'd be, let us know.
And that actually would be a good session for a therapist one day too. I know that's pretty cliche advice from us is like, don't be afraid to go talk to a therapist, but this might be something that you do want to discuss. And, not necessarily because it needs to have action associated with it. You have to do something one way or the other. But again, my desire for you is just that self-examination, self-acceptance, and then ultimately feeling comfortable with the conclusions you've reached and why you've reached them. Mm-hmm. That's key. We call that congruence. And that's the thing that I would probably want for you most of all. But great question, Ryder. Thank you for that. And I think a lot of people relate to your question. I'm sure you can go to patreon.com/therapy and you can read all the comments on this episode where folks will probably let you know what they think. So always looking for listeners to weigh in on this stuff. If you'd like to weigh in, come down to patreon.com/therapy, comment on this episode, and let Rebecca know what you think. And maybe Rebecca will come down and check out your answers. So could be good. We're at the end of the show. We want to thank all the folks that support us at patreon.com/therapy. If you're new to the show, we have a bunch of different giving levels. We have Therapals, Therapods, Theradactyls, and of course the coveted Theraproducers, who we always thank at the end of every episode. They are our bosses, the Saccharin 16.
We have a new one.
Go ahead.
We need to announce that.
We have a new Theraproducer?
Yeah.
Whoa! Who?
New Stick.
What?
Yeah.
You mean Emily?
If it was, she changed her name.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's
they changed their name. But go on.
Right. That's the way it appears on Patreon.
Okay. So what's the name now?
New Stick. Nuustik.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll stick with that. So we want to thank our bosses, the Saccharin 16, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club, the Theraproducers. Hey, wait, New Stick's not on here.
Yes.
Thank you,
is on there.
New
It's
Stick.
the very end.
Oh, thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury.
Why do I even bother?
Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, King of Student Loan Debt, Dr. Ben Dog, and surfing extraordinaire of the Indianapolis Oceans. Where were we at? Crazy Banana Scoop, Mason Miller, Scott Jameson, Carolyn Albert, Leon Kassab, Kevin Chamberlain, Malaya, Richard Macy, Cindy Ash, and Lord Colin Stewart. And see, New Stick's not on my list.
Then you didn't download the latest version.
I'm literally holding it in my hands.
Then you're literally not. I don't know what to tell you.
And New Stick. Thank you, New Stick.
And if you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited.
You're correct.
And enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time we got for this week's session. I want to thank our landlords, Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast, Thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening the description in your podcast app and copying and pasting that link we provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter at PodTherapyGuys, on Instagram at PodTherapyGuys, and of course at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Kurt Letterman.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
You see how I did there? Because I blended together
No, I didn't see it.
David Letterman
I still don't get it.
and Kurt Vonnegut.
And who?
This is the answers. Is it Vonnegut? Vonnegut? Is it Vonnegut?
Kurt Vonnegut?
That feels right.
Was that your pseudonym?
Yes. Wait. Oh, yeah, that. Man, that was a good callback. Yes, it was Kurt Vonnegut.
It was an okay callback.
It was a long time ago we were talking about that. I've completely forgotten about it.
You made up a name. That name was related to authors.
Yes.
I related that to a pseudonym.
I said good
that
callback.
you had.
I said good callback.
No, I'm agreeing with Nick.
Yeah,
It wasn't that
it
good of a
was-
callback. It was a fine
Wow.
callback.
It's fine.
I compliment
It
you
was
and I'm
fine.
still wrong.
Yep.
Yes.
That's remarkable.